There's this one time I was at confession and I needed to be there. I knew what I had done wrong. And the priest, for whatever reason, thought that what I really needed was a lecture. So he gave some terrible advice. It was psychologically unsound. I wasn't really having much of it, but he kind of insisted on still saying it. And at one point, I'm just kind of like, I'll let you rant, but I'm not really listening. I'm not really paying attention. And then left and distinctly remembered thinking, I'm really glad that I'm won over to the church because if I wasn't, I'd be done right now. One of my roommates this past weekend came back after Mass and told me how there was this old guy right behind him just muttering and complaining about a lot of things. Like he was complaining about babies crying. Like, oh, sorry, I didn't put this baby on silent mode. That's pro-life means pro-life and babies are life. But also he was complaining specifically about my roommate and his girlfriend. So my roommate had his arm along her back. And I guess this guy thought that was totally unacceptable, either in church or in general. And so he's just muttering to himself, saying disparaging things. And as he comes back and tells me this story, I kind of relayed the story I just told earlier to him, is that I'm really glad that you're won over to Jesus in the church. Like if you had just been coming back in your faith, if this is like your first time back at Mass, that experience may have just pushed you away completely. You're like, all right, I'm done with this whole thing. I'm probably sure that somehow he thought that he was doing something good. Although really, if you're going to correct someone, you should like actually tell them and not like mutter it behind their back. But even if he had good intentions, that doesn't mean that it had a good impact. That kind of thing. If your goal is to push people away, that's what you should do, is say things like that. Or like the people who only show up on Christmas or Easter and most people are just complaining like, oh, you took my seat, or why don't we see you here more? Like if the only times that you went to something, people made you feel bad about not going more often, would you want to go back? I wouldn't want to go back. It shows that the best argument against Christianity is Christians. That's not a good statement, but I think it's true. Because, like, on a logical argument level, we can answer those. Like, someone somewhere in the history of the church has been asked that question and has answered it. Or some arguments, it's more of an emotional appeal. Again, we can also answer those. But having a really bad experience from someone who professes the name of Jesus, that kind of thing is like, well, if that's what being a Christian is like, I don't want any part of that. The flip side is, though, that a good example of Christian, that's one of those things that draws you in. An argument, even if it's a good argument, still you're like, oh, there's something not there. Like very few people, it's an intellectual conversion that brings them in. An emotional appeal, that doesn't last. But seeing that witness, that kind of thing is a great start to things. Are you like the people in the stories I told who said things that could push people away? Or think about who in your life said yes to Jesus and through their example it helped bring you in or bring you deeper. Who that person was to you. Which of those two groups do you want to be? It's not a trick question, by the way. I'm going to read you a section from an encyclical by Pope Paul VI. It's called Evangelii Nuntiandi, which is Latin for the proclaiming of the gospel, about witness. And the citation comes from numbers 21 and 22. I'm not reading the whole paragraphs because they're long, just excerpts, but in case you want to look it up. In this part, so paragraph 21, he's talking about Christians who are living their witness very well, that they're very visibly, their life is different. Here's one thing he has to say. These Christians stir up irresistible questions in the hearts of those who see how they live. Why are they like this? Why do they live this way? What or who is it that inspires them? Why are they in our midst? Such a witness is already a silent proclamation of the good news and a very powerful and effective one. When I hear this, I think about the people who are like, yeah, I want to definitely live my life so that people see that something's different and they ask, why are you different? Now we get to the next paragraph. Nevertheless, this always remains insufficient because even the finest witness will prove ineffective in the long run if it's not explained. So, if you're like, I'm just going to live my life, I'm not going to say anything, that's not enough. Like, you can hold the door open for your coworkers all you want, but they're not going to know that it's because of Jesus that you're doing that. They're probably not going to ask about Jesus because you held the door open for them. Granted, the two paragraphs go together. Like, you shouldn't just proclaim and not have the witness of life, but you also shouldn't just have the witness of life. At a certain point, you do need to explain that. Your words and your actions are a witness. It's just a question of what, or to what, or for what. You can change the preposition around there. Are you witnessing for Jesus? Are you witnessing against Jesus? Or are you doing absolutely nothing, which also counts to the witnessing against Jesus? Because like if your life looks the exact same as everyone else, they're like, why should I follow him? Because our lives are already the same, and it sounds like this is a bunch of extra stuff. So I'll just stay where I am because it's going to be the same even if I do. Because leadership is the exercise of influence, whether formal or not. So if you have influence among people you know, which you should, the question is, what are you using it for? Are you using it? If you're not, that's a wasted thing. Are you using it for good, which you should be? Are you using it to build up the kingdom? And that is heroicness. And that's the theme of this channel. So P.S. Be a hero today.